Hello and welcome to Phil 210. This is week 5. This is the week 5 unit. And if you look at the screen, you'll see that, as always, one needs to check assignments. Have you completed all of the assignments this week? Have you read the handouts? Have you watched the videos? Have you completed the forum or forums? And again, please note that in the forum this week, among other things, students must state their thesis for their term paper. Many thanks. Okay. Now, again, this is primarily applying to Phil 210.1 and Phil 210.2. Uh, this is because in the campus-based version, I am there and we talk about it. In the asynchronous version, this is me sharing with you the things that we need to accomplish this week. All right, week 5. First of all, let's go over and look at assignments because we did say that we would look at assignments. We have all these various week 5 assignments, and you'll note that primarily it's the Plato's Cave. That is what you need to do this week. Next week, coming up, there will be a Checking for Understanding forum, branching discourse. Going through the slideshow review that we have under handouts will help you with that. We also have a forum discussion topic about spatial rhetoric. We've already been talking about that in the synchronous sessions for the synchronous version of this course, but in the asynchronous versions, we will be getting round to that next week. All right, let's look at week 5 again. As I said, we have Plato's Cave, the allegory of the cave. There's also a discussion of epistemic responsibility. Remember, we've got 3 branches of philosophy. We've got metaphysics, which has to do with what is real, states of being. We have axiology, which has to do with values theory. That is ethics, also what is beautiful, aesthetics. We additionally, and then of course, epistemic responsibility refers to theory of knowledge, so epistemology, right? Okay, then we have going on to the paradox of unanimity. We're going to be watching a video with Kevin MacLeod, longtime producer of Grand Designs and a expert on theory of aesthetics in terms of architecture and development of physical spaces. We also have an architect from Architectural Digest discussing 4 museums of New York. And I think that I'm hoping that you'll enjoy those as discussions of spatial rhetoric. We additionally have something that's about the metaphysical side of things, the red pill versus blue pill conundrum from the Matrix. Please remember to read all of the written content in the unit as well. I have just for fun a link to an interactive timeline of European philosophy, but that is not required. Let's scroll back up the page and again look at the far right. To-do list we've gone through. It's never too soon to start that research project. And by that I mean your argumentative paper. So these are some online libraries that might be helpful. Note, ours is prominently here, our Heritage Library. It looks like a few students have already addressed the forum. We're going to go inside the forum and look at what it says there. In this forum, it asks you to state, what did you think of this week's educational videos in general? How do you know if something is real or true? Do you think it's important to share accurate information? Can you think of examples in social media and the news in which those reported or reporting and sharing information do not seem to be checking their facts? Also, please state the argumentative thesis for your research project term paper. Remember, an argumentative thesis is a topic subject teamed with your own debatable perspective about the topic and subject. The choice of topic for the paper and the perspective you take on it is entirely up to you. Okay. So that is the forum that you'll be answering. And again, it looks like quite a number of you have already begun tackling week 5. Then we have a plethora of handouts. Now, in the synchronous session, there are more handouts, and that's partly because we talk about them during class. But in this class, you need to read through them. There's the RefWorks information. I think you should sign up for RefWorks if you haven't already, that the information is available there. Lecture notes. This includes information about ethos, pathos, and logos. I think you'll find the week 5 lecture notes relating to that helpful. There's a short reading, the first 4 pages of a chapter that has been scanned and placed in this unit. Linda Twai Smith's Decolonizing Methodologies, the introduction from that book. And then we also have this review that I spoke of earlier, the review of weeks, and it's weeks or chapters, whichever way you want to look at it, 1 through 5, notes PDF. And when you open that, it will look like this. So there was another one that's very similar, which I've taken out of current availability because I think this version is improved. But it will tell you all of the basic information that you should have gathered here too in the course. So I would recommend going through the slides. There are quite a few of them. It's a long document, but it's highly recommended that you go through it. It will help you not only get through the checking for understanding exam, but will help you get through the final exam, both of which are very important. Okay, this is back to our landing page, and I will be getting to this section where you will be able to see the update from this week, whether you're in the asynchronous or synchronous course. For the asynchronous, I'll also be paying attention to placing the update within week 5. Again, let's just take a glance at week 6 just to get a start on it. Next week, you'll note that we are going to be looking at major world religions. We'll have some assignments to check again, which we were looking at before, reading the handouts, watching the videos, completing the forum. There's also a little bit of a virtual excursion where you kind of compare 2 places online. In the videos, again, we've got the 5 major world religions, we've got the nature of reality, and who would you save? So a little bit of a thought experiment there for you. In addition to the virtual excursion, we have handouts. There's only one for you to do if you're in the asynchronous version next week, and that's the cognitive bias list. And here's our spatial rhetoric forum. Let's go inside. We've got branching discourse. So branching discourse says, please choose 3 of the biases from the cognitive bias list. And you saw earlier where that was. Which 3 do you think are the most dangerous is what I'm asking. And please justify your choices. Also, in this course, we have talked about the structure of arguments and types of reasoning. We've talked about what a challenge it can be to sort that from fiction. We've also talked about the basic branches of European philosophy, namely epistemology, axiology, metaphysics, and then methodology, that's logic, that's reasoning. Remember, we talked about how logic and reasoning, rather than, they are their own branch in a sense, but they're also dynamic. Methodology is dynamic. It's what we use to understand the other branches. So I've likened it both to a headband that holds back my hair and keeps the stray locks of hair from obscuring my view of the world, but also it is like a bird, right? So a bird kind of flitting through the sky, going to a tree, and it goes from the branch of epistemology that's about knowledge. It gathers some materials from axiology, values theory. It grabs some materials from what is real, metaphysics, and it takes all those materials and it forms a nest. It creates the home of the mind out of gathering materials from these other branches. Okay. So again, I also go over what axiology is, epistemology, and metaphysics, and then methodology. So can you think of questions or problems that would be primarily addressed by each of these separate branches of philosophy? Is road rage socially acceptable and a constructive way to behave when driving? Now, this question primarily would fall to the realm of axiology, moral values in mundane practice. How should we treat one another? Democrats are all vampires. A statement is one based in epistemology and epistemic responsibility. It would be highly irresponsible and inaccurate to suggest, except perhaps as a joke, that Democrats are vampires. And even as a joke these days is not a very funny one, is it? Does God exist? And if so, is God loving? That's a metaphysical question. That's a question of what is real. And as you recall, I tend to think that religion is a belief system, a matter of faith. So I tend to separate it out and place it apart from the sort of questions that we go through on a routine basis in terms of our applications of logic and justification. We in philosophy have moved past, on, beyond the notion of counting how many angels will fit on the head of a pin, right? Okay, so please provide an example. This is next week. This is week 6. We're previewing week 6. You're going to be providing an example of a question or statement as to what region or branch of philosophy that statement is centrally based upon. So we've got at least one person who's already ahead to week 6. Remember, you can work in ahead in the asynchronous version of the course. You just can't work behind, ideally. You can't be late, but you can be early. All right, let's continue to look at the notion within here of spatial rhetoric. So you've got 2 forms this week if you're in the asynchronous course. If you're in the synchronous course, we have a different situation going. So what is spatial rhetoric and how might we better understand this week's virtual excursions? Remember, there are links to that, and they're in this forum as well. By applying spatial rhetoric as a conceptual context. Rhetoric is the art and science of persuasion. Our physical spaces are speaking to us all the time. Of course, we can see that in an advertising billboard, we can see it's speaking to us. It's trying to sell us something and persuade us of something. But what about our classrooms? What about the Heritage Toppenish campus space, for example? For this forum, I would like students to write about spatial rhetoric. Let's especially trying to compare the virtual tours exhibit listed on the main page for the Pitt Rivers, Oxford, with a separate British Library tour. How are they different from each other? What do you like or dislike about each? And I have several questions about this. And then I've provided the links. But that's next week. Let's jump back again to week 5, which is where we're at now. And again, you're going to be watching those videos, all of them, and this one too, ideally. And then you're also going to be considering your thesis for your paper and reporting what that thesis is in the forums, as well as telling me what you think of this week's videos. Remember to respond. That is respond to a co-learner. Apologies. And then remember to read. There are the handouts, RefWorks, lecture notes, the first 4 pages of the chapter. So not the whole chapter, first 4 pages of the chapter. You're welcome to read the whole chapter if you wish, but at minimum the first 4 pages. And then again, all the way through this, it's quite lengthy, but the weeks 1 through 5 notes will be of great help to you and support in your future exam processes in this course. Thank you so much for your time and attention. See you next week.